The Eastern Sierra News brought to you by
T-Bar Social Club, June Lake's newest gathering place, offering June pie, New York-style pizza, and year-round entertainment in a warm, welcoming atmosphere. See you in the loop.
Well, the pilot of an FA-18E Super Hornet fighter jet died after that jet crashed Wednesday in Death Valley National Park. The U.S. Navy confirmed that earlier Thursday. The U.S. Navy said the death of the pilot just before 12:40 p.m., saying the Navy has confirmed that the pilot of the FA-18E died in the crash. In accordance with DoD policy, the identity of the pilot will be withheld 24 hours. The Navy mourns the loss of one of our own, and our thoughts go out to the family and friends affected by this tragedy, end quote. Now, that pilot had been missing following the fighter jet crash that left 7 Death Valley visitors with minor injuries. Now, according to the official Twitter feed for the U.S. Naval Air Forces, the crash happened around 10 a.m. on Wednesday when the FA-18E Super Hornet went down near an area often referred to as Star Wars Canyon. Now, this is not far from the Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake, on the western edge of Death Valley National Park near Ridgecrest. The aircraft was on a routine training flight when the crash occurred. Star Wars Canyon, popular with visitors because fighter jets speed through it. As a matter of fact, the LA Times did a story on this with many photographers over the last few months. The pilot and the jet were assigned to the Naval Air Station Lemoore. The Navy said in a statement Thursday that the pilot's identity will be withheld for 24 hours after notification of next of kin in accordance with DoD policy. The cause of that crash is under investigation. The pilot was part of the Vigilantes Strike Fighter Force Squadron 151 out of Lemoore. Well, Deb Murphy filed this report. One significant takeaway from the two-day Eastern Sierra Opioid Summit held last week: opioid addiction is not isolated to individual users, it's a community problem. Now, sponsored by the Toyabe Indian Health Project and a long list of area groups, including Northern Inyo Hospital, the summit brought together a varied panel of experts with hands-on experience. The first day's topics were crafted for lay people, the second for care providers. Now, during the panel discussion on local access to care, Arlene Brown stressed the importance of lowering the barriers to care. A citizen of the Bishop Paiute tribe currently working toward her doctorate degree, Brown works at the Rural Health Clinic's Medication-Assisted Treatment Program. The meds used in the program include Narcan to bring users out of an overdose and drugs that can control the craving. It's life and death when it comes to addiction, she said. Patients shouldn't have to prove how much they want sobriety. Everybody's journey is different. No one knows what your success looks like, end quote. Dan David, Care Coordination Program Manager at Northern Inyo Hospital, explained the hub and spoke approach. David said if you need a higher level of treatment or funding for meds, we're the spoke. Dan's job focuses on getting more people into the Bridge program that provides both medications and counseling. Now, often the first step to recovery is an encounter with law enforcement. Bishop Police Department Sergeant Ron Gladding, the Bishop's Narcotics Operations Supervisor, sees his job as reaching out to people in trouble. We're not just there to make an arrest or write a ticket, Gladding said. But, he added, he's still trying to convince some of his peers. Gladding defined the extent of the problem in the Eastern Sierra with the statement that the Bishop Police Department patrol cars can have Narcan. During a presentation at Bishop Union High School, Danny David was approached by students asking for help. Treatment is also provided at the Inyo County Jail in Independence. Now, Katie Bell, a nurse consultant with the Tellerwell Indian Health MAT project, addressed a significant issue in small communities: the stigma of drug addictions. Users are seen as bad, not ill, she said. If patients are seen as sick and brave instead of bad, more would get better. That stigma is even part of the culture of 12-step programs, she explained, especially in anatomy no one can know. Now that prejudice starts with the words and body language and filters down to funding for treatment, which Bell has said has been slow in coming. The opioid epidemic had to be pretty big before we saw the funding, she said. Now the result of that stigma, 1 in 10 receive treatment. Users are afraid to go to emergency rooms. Opioid addiction is a progressive, recurring disease, Bell said, and users should be seen as patients, not pariahs. Thank Deb Murphy for that fine report. Well, 2 stories on sexual abuse charges, including an arrest in Mono County and no charges filed in Inyo County. Now, from Mono County District Attorney Tim Kendall, news release says on July 22nd, Mammoth Lakes Police and Mono County District Attorney investigators arrested Christopher Adams Libby, age 61, for 3 felony counts of sexual acts with a child under the age of 14. Now, in accordance with the applicable statute of limitations, Libby is alleged to have had substantial sexual contact with the minor, and the conduct is being supported by independent corroborating evidence. Now, these acts were alleged to have occurred in Mammoth Lakes between the summers of 2002 and 2003. During that course of the investigation, the news release states it was discovered there are potentially other victims in the Mammoth Lakes area spanning decades, possibly as far back as the early 1900s. If you or someone you know has any information concerning Christopher Libby and sexual acts with children, you're asked to call Officer Brian Madera, Mammoth Lakes Police Department. Phone number is 760-970-8413. Or Chief Investigator Chris Callanan in the Mono County District Attorney's Office at 760-858-2127. Mono DA Kendall notes that, as with all pending cases, Libby is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And now no criminal charges will be filed into the investigation of Eugenio Solario. Inyo County District Attorney Thomas Harding announced that, having carefully evaluated the information from the Bishop Police Department's supplemental investigation, no criminal charges will be filed against Solario. He was arrested by the Bishop Police Department April 22nd, 2019 on charges related to committing lewd acts with a minor. Now, at the time, the Inyo District Attorney's Office declined to file charges and referred the case for further investigation. That investigation has been completed, and it is still in the judgment of DA Hardy that there is not sufficient evidence to file criminal charges. He said, quote, "A prosecutor has both a legal and ethical obligation to file criminal charges only if he or she believes, after a review of the legally admissible evidence, including reasonably foreseeable defenses, that a reasonable and objective jury would find a suspect guilty beyond a reasonable doubt." That is a high burden of proof that we take very seriously and which we do not believe can be met at this time, end quote from DA Hardy. Now, if any new or additional information becomes available, the case can be reconsidered, but Hardy said, "I understand that the Bishop PD has concluded its active investigation." Now, even though the active investigation has been completed, anyone with any information regarding the case still encouraged to contact the BPD. Now, the legal standard, according to that news release from DA Hardy, says for an arrest is much different than that for a conviction. The arrest in this case was made based on probable cause after a forensic interview was conducted by trained law enforcement officials. Additionally, a search warrant based on this probable cause was subsequently issued by a judge and served by Bishop Police Department officers. BPD also conducted substantial follow-up investigation. News release states the public is reminded that a criminal investigation does not attempt to address issues of potential civil liability nor administrative policy or policy violations, all of which are subject to lower standards of proof. We'll be back with more news.